Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Gather and Go, the podcast that helps you plan, promote, and lead better trips. I'm your host, Brian Jewell. I am feeling merry and bright because it is mid-December and you decided to spend some of your time with us today. And as always, our promise to you is that we're going to do everything we can to make that investment of your time worth your while. Well, since we are in the holiday season, I thought we would spend some time today focusing on the things that the season is all about. Things such as family, things such as serving, things such as helping other people. To do that, I'm going to bring you a really cool featured conversation with Fred Carlson today. Fred is the founder of a company called SerVacations. They are all about blending travel experiences with service opportunities and doing it, get this, for the entire family. That's right. It's a multi-generational travel service company. Such a cool concept. Fred has so many inspiring things to say about the way that service can be a meaningful and important part of travel. I am excited for you to hear that conversation. You're not going to want to miss it. Before we get there, though, let's start with some travel news you may have missed. The city of Venice has implemented a new fee for day trippers. Authorities in the popular Italian destination announced a pilot program last month to charge a €5 fee to enter the city on peak weekends in 2024. The fee is part of an effort to reduce crowding and improve quality of life in the fragile lagoon city, a UNESCO World Heritage Site that many experts believe is in danger of overtourism. Venice Mayor Luigi Brugnaro said the fee is not a new tourist tax or an attempt to bring in extra revenue, but an experiment in regulating tourist flows by incentivizing visitors to avoid high traffic periods and come on other days. The fee will apply from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. on 29 days from April to mid-July, and will only apply to people visiting for the day. Workers, students, and visitors staying overnight at Venice hotels will not have to pay. If the program is successful in mitigating tourist crowding in Venice, you can expect to see similar programs rolled out in other popular destinations in 2025 and beyond. Well, now it is time for the road tip segment of our show. This is the portion of every episode where we reach into our bag of travel knowledge accumulated over several decades in the tourism business and share some tips that we think will help you make your next trip more enjoyable and less hassle. You know, since it is winter time and it is getting cold outside, I've been thinking recently about some of my favorite holiday trips over the years. And it got me thinking about one of the first holiday trips I did. I was brand new in travel journalism. This must have been like 2004 or something. And I got invited on a trip to Germany, to the province of Bavaria, to visit their famous Christmas markets. It was beautiful over there. The Christmas markets absolutely were stunning and charming. I can't say enough good things about them. It's absolutely a trip you should consider doing. But I was brand new to the business. I must have been 23. And on that trip, well, I made some really poor assumptions. One of the assumptions was that weather in Germany in December would be more or less similar to the weather in Kentucky, where I have spent my whole life in the month of December. Boy, was I wrong about that. It must have been at least 10 degrees colder, maybe more every day in Germany than it was at home. And I was not prepared for that. You know, the other really faulty assumption that I made was that since we were visiting in the winter, that surely our hosts and the tour organizers would put together a program of indoor activities for us because, of course, it would be unpleasant to spend all day outdoors in the middle of winter. Well, what I didn't realize was that Germans are a hardy bunch of people. Maybe you might call them tough, certainly a little tougher than Americans. And my German hosts had no intentions of going easy on their American guests. And we spent a week in cities and towns throughout Bavaria, touring most of the day outside, just like you would have done if you had visited in the middle of the summer. Well, needless to say, I was freezing. See, I had brought what I wear around my hometown in the winter, which is kind of just a big winter coat, and that was it. I wasn't experienced enough, or just maybe not bright enough, to plan ahead and bring clothes that would keep me warm for long stretches outside. And it got me thinking, if you are going to do holiday travel or winter travel, well, it might be helpful for you to think ahead and prepare your travelers ahead of time for some essential items they need to stay warm on those trips. What are some of those essential items? Well, the biggest mistake I made when I went to Germany was not bringing any gloves. And I thought, well, I can just keep my hands in my pockets if it's cold. What I didn't realize is that the cold over there was cold enough and the wind was windy enough that keeping my hands in my pockets wasn't going to be enough to keep them warm. Not only that, I was trying to take notes, take pictures, all the things I normally do when I travel, and my hands were getting absolutely frigid. Fortunately, after a day or two, another trip participant realized that I was struggling. She had an extra pair of those unisex, one-size-fits-all stretchy gloves that she let me keep for the rest of the trip. She may have saved my life, or at least saved my fingertips from frostbite. I was so grateful to her. But I realized that never again should I travel in the winter without a few key things. One of those is something to keep your hands warm. Now, gloves are great, but they're not always good enough. They're not always the best solution. A couple of cool things that I have encountered recently to keep your hands warm on cold days. Number one are these sort of single-use hand warmers. You can buy them at convenience stores or all kinds of other places. They come in these little foil packets, and basically you just crinkle them up. You break up the material inside the packets when it gets cold out, and something about that creates a chemical reaction that emits a lot of heat. And so you break those up, you keep them in your pockets, put your hands in your pockets, and boy, do they keep your hands toasty. I was introduced to those on another winter trip a couple years ago. They're an absolute lifesaver. Another thing you can use are some of these electric hand warming devices. You can actually travel with these, keep them in your carry-on, charge them via USB in your hotel room overnight, and they can create warmth in your pockets or anywhere else on your body for hours at a time. And man, can these be lifesavers if you're going to be outside for a long time in the cold. But in addition to something to keep your hands warm, let me encourage you to bring something to cover your head, because having your head exposed outside for long periods of time can really make you feel cold. So don't worry about what you look like. Bring a beanie, bring a stocking cap, bring earmuffs, bring whatever you need to keep your head covered in cold weather. It's going to make a big difference. And finally, let me encourage you to bring something to break the wind. You know, I was cold in Germany, but I don't think I've ever been colder than I felt on a day that was about 60 degrees on an island in the Great Lakes up in Wisconsin. Now, I looked at the forecast and thought, oh, it's going to be in the 60s. This won't be any big deal. But what I didn't realize was that the wind whipping off the lake would absolutely chill me to the bone. I didn't need a heavy coat on that day, but what I sure wish I had had was a light jacket to break the wind. Even when it's not going to be below freezing, even when you're not going to be frigid, having something to break the wind can really make the difference between a pleasant, brisk day outside and an absolutely agonizing day of wind and cold. So next time you are going on a trip or you're taking travelers on a trip when it's going to be cold or even windy, make sure you bring something to warm your hands, something to cover your head, something to break the wind, and you can enjoy a lovely, charming winter trip without freezing to death. That is your road tip of the week. Well, before we move on, I want to share a little bit of news from us. You know, if you are like many of our listeners, you might be new to the tourism industry. Maybe you are thinking about starting a travel program for an organization you represent, a community group you're part of, maybe just putting together some group travel for friends. If that is you, we have a brand new resource that you are going to love. It's going to be hugely helpful to you. It's called Travel Free and Bring Your Friends, and it is a PDF download that gives you a comprehensive guide to starting a group travel program. And yes, traveling free by bringing your friends on trips. Now, this guide gives away all the secrets of the group travel industry. It is 5 chapters long, 32 pages, tons and tons of great info, and we are excited to put it in your hands. Now, you might ask yourself, how much does a resource like this cost? Because it sounds invaluable. Well, get ready. This resource is absolutely free. That's right. There's no cost to you or to anyone else. All you have to do is go to grouptravelleader.com/travel free. That's all one word, travel free. When you get there, you're going to put in your first name and your last name and your email address, and we are going to email you a download link for that PDF. There's nothing else you have to do. It is absolutely free because we love helping people like you launch and grow fantastic group travel programs. So grouptravelleader.com/travel free to get your copy of Travel Free and Bring Your Friends. We can't wait for you to see it, and we can't wait to hear what you think of it. Well, now it's just about time for us to get into our featured conversation with Fred Carlson. Before we do, let me remind you that you don't need to worry about taking notes because I am taking notes for you. You're going to find some of the most important things Fred had to say in the show notes right below the audio player you're listening to right now. And after we finish with the interview, let me encourage you to stick around for another couple minutes because I'm going to talk a little bit more about the problem of overtourism and discuss how we should or maybe shouldn't handle it in the travel industry. That's the topic of today's Hot Minute. You won't want to miss that. We'll be right back with Fred Carlson. All right, everybody. My guest today is a serial entrepreneur who has worked in fields ranging from contracting and real estate to ice vending. Today, he's the founder and chief service officer of SerVacations, a group travel organization that combines community service with fun tourism experiences in destinations around the U.S. Fred Carlson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I appreciate it, Brian. I've been a big fan of the podcast, and I look forward to chatting.
Well, it's so great to have you here. And I can't wait for our audience to hear your story because real estate, contracting, ice vending, tourism industry, you've got to help us understand how you got from all those other businesses and then said, hey, I am going to start a tour business. So give us some of that background.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a civil engineer by trade and have had careers in real estate and construction and business. And really, it goes back to when I was a kid. I was 7-year-old. You asked me back when I was 7, and I would tell you that I wanted to be a travel agent. You know, I got to give a shout out to my mom, but she used to take us on these big family vacations. She'd put me and my sister in the car. My dad would stay home and work, and we'd go out, drive from Florida all the way out west to the Grand Canyon and come all the way back. And just, you know, she would actually let me do all of the itinerary building and the navigation.
Wow.
And, that was before the internet. So it was, a stack of AAA guidebooks and a bunch of maps and this little kid, telling her where to head to and what hotel we were going to stay at that night. You didn't book it online on an app. You hope that there was, a room at the inn, so to speak.
Yeah. Wow.
And, just always had that love and a love for both domestic and international travel and traveling with our family and our kids. And so, that's really where that passion comes from. And really never considered what a tour operator was or group travel or anything like that at that time. Quickly got into math and science. And, frankly, people were telling everybody that there weren't going to be travel agents in a few years once the internet came along. And of course, you see how funny that sounds now. But
right.
It's an honor to be in the industry. When the Lord really gave us this vision for SerVacations to combine volunteering and vacation, when, we have a lot of families in our small group at church, and, just families that we're friends with from school and everywhere else that say they really wish that they had more time to volunteer, and how much, energy it takes to schedule that into their busy schedules. And we just thought, what if we could use vacation time, to dedicate to serving others? And, it's very common for families to go on a mission trip together if they're family oriented, and, potentially leave the kids for, a week at a time or something like that. But that's not really where our heart is. We want to serve with our kids. And, we thought, well, there's all this time that we spend vacationing and trying to kind of escape and be served. But what if we use that time to actually serve others?
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So you got into this in 2020. Tell us about the first trip that you ran, where it was, and maybe what you're planning to do now that you're 3 years in.
So the first trip, it was kind of a friends and family trip. We were just trying to gauge, whether there would be any interest in this. And we got a whole bunch of people, together and said, we're going to be heading to Tarpon Springs, Florida. It's a Greek community. Lots of Greek heritage from back at the turn of the century, and the culture just has not changed in that small town. I don't know if you've ever visited, but the food, it's just so authentic, and the kids still go to Greek school there.
Wow.
And we have a native guide. That's something that's, very important to us in our tours, is that we have guides that are local and that are real experts in the community. And we do a sponge diving boat ride where they actually have the diver put on the suit and head out there. And, something that was interesting to us as our group went out is that we had a lot of people come out of the woodwork during COVID that were homeschool families, and we didn't expect that. But a lot of those homeschool families wanted to get outside of the home classroom, so to speak, and just, get out there and bring learning to life. And so they all started hopping on board, and we realized, well, there's a really neat market here, and that's one that's really grown for us, and that's intriguing. But yeah, we combine that with some service, and we do great authentic food to whatever neighborhood we're in, and got a lot of great feedback from that, and just kept on developing it. We started with single day trips, and then as things, as we started to have some repeat customers and some really excited advocates for our brand, they started asking, can you take us on multi-day trips outbound to other cities like Williamsburg or to the Ark Encounter? And so we're really starting to head in that direction and start to do more multi-day travel, and heading to conferences like group travel leaders and going on faith and boomers and groups, and really understanding that multi-day, all the facets of multi-day travel. And we've started running multi-day trips. So
your customer demographic, it may be unlike any I've ever heard of before from a traditional tour operator. It's fascinating to hear you talk about families going out, taking young kids, homeschool families. So tell me more about the marketplace, how it's responding. Have you had to go out there to market? Do you advertise, or is it just more word of mouth, people finding out about what you're doing and reaching out to you?
Yeah, a lot of it's word of mouth. Our different marketplaces, or our niches, so to speak, it really is a lot of faith-based groups, churches and ministries, maybe marriage retreats or, small groups, and then these homeschool families. And it's, curriculum-based travel for the homeschool families, really bringing learning to life, like I said. And then we have some senior groups, and we just came back from an alumni travel, an affinity group for a college alumni associate or alumni network. And we're also getting some church, doing some church tours for pastors in other cities. We're actually going internationally to London. I can talk more about that. But yeah, it's a really unique demographic. It's the type of people are people that really compassionate people who, they want to be a light to the world. They want to give back. They enjoy getting to know people. They want to be treated like family while they're on the tours. Sometimes it's folks that haven't really volunteered before, and they just want to dip their foot in, and they want to mix it with some exciting attractions and a great day, or maybe it's one of our baseball tours or something like that. Their passion is really about the theme of that trip, but then they start serving while they're out there, and they decide when they get back home, hey, this is just a really, really fun activity. Let's go ahead and connect with this same charity back in my hometown, and start volunteering there on a regular basis. So,
yeah. I love seeing that impact after the trip. That's a sign that these experiences are really sticking with people.
That's what we're all about, is connecting folks to new charities that they're not aware of, and helping them to become cheerleaders for that organization when they get back home. And same thing with the destinations that we go to. We want them excited about where they're serving, where they're connecting, understanding the challenges and the hopes of that community, getting to know their DMOs, and wanting to come back and visit in the future again.
Yeah, I love that. So let's get into a day in the life of a SerVacations customer. What are they going to do? What's the mix going to be like between the time they spend serving, the time they spend on more traditional touring activities? Can you give us a snapshot of that?
Yeah, typically a SerVacation will start out, whether it's a single day or a multi-day trip. The service is usually in the morning, just depending on what the facilities that we're serving at and, their scheduling. But picture serving maybe for a 2.5 hour block. We're finding that that's kind of the sweet spot. That's what it kind of looks like, maybe a 2.5 hour block of serving in the morning. And then we go and have an authentic lunch to whatever neighborhood we're visiting that day. And then we're off to do more sightseeing in the afternoon. And it's usually, like I said, local step-on guides, activities that are themed around whatever the theme of the SerVacation is. And if it's multi-day, you're talking multiple of those 2.5 hour blocks. Could be on a 7-day or a 7-night trip. It might be, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, serving at various charities in the morning. Really a deep dive into a community, and kind of a hub and spokes model, staying in the same location, and maybe a day off on Wednesday to go to the beach or go to a major attraction or something. That's really the vision for it and how it's kind of played out. But long weekends might be 1 or 2 blocks of service.
Yeah. That makes total sense. So you mentioned some do's and don'ts. I think that would be super helpful, because this is a topic that's on a lot of people's minds right now. I was actually just at a conference this week that was very focused on community impact in tourism. And a lot of people like the idea of doing that, but you are maybe a year or 2 or 3 years ahead of some people who would love to try it. So I would love for our audience to know more about some of those do's and don'ts, maybe some lessons you've learned the hard way. How do they do this in a way that is effective and they don't end up with egg on their face?
Yeah, really get to know the charities in your destination, wherever you are traveling, and start vetting them and start understanding their unique needs and challenges in those communities. And make sure to explain to the charity as you're working with them that you want to share their mission, that you want them to have that platform to be able to tour folks around their facility if it's an on-site. I don't think I mentioned that, but we typically like to serve at the local facilities wherever they're accomplishing their mission. But you could also do off-site, where they come to a hotel, meeting room, and are able to share their mission, and there's some sort of a volunteer activity. Maybe it's crafting greeting cards to give out to advocates for at a foster home or therapists at a sex trafficking ministry or something like that. But make sure to explain to the charity that you really want them to have an opportunity to share their mission with the guests, tour them around their facility. That we're trying to create wow moments, but authentic wow moments, and where people are really, really touched by the people that they're able to serve, and they go away knowing that they made a positive impact and that it's sustainable. And that's, most important, is that it's not just a flash in the pan, and you're actually doing something that's going to continue after you leave. And, an easy way to do that is to be partnering with with local community-based charities. And that's what we try to do. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't a national charity, but what it means is that there's a local board and that there are services that are customized to that local community, and that they're continuing those services long after you leave, and give your guests the opportunity to come back and to engage with them and stay involved.
Yeah.
Also, understanding the charity's space restrictions is really critical. It's very unique when you're dealing with travel, is that, hey, we might not be able to bring a busload of 50 people and volunteer at this facility. It might just be too small of a food pantry that they can't handle that. So any special age restrictions or waivers that have to be signed, that makes it, very unique. And that's, one of the reasons that you probably don't always see traditional larger tour operators dealing in this space, but they're probably just as capable, a lot more than we are at checking those boxes and understanding their partners. So I hope to see it get into that larger space as well.
So talk to us about some of the service opportunities, what they look like, say, when you do go to an organization's facility. What are some of the things that your travelers end up doing? And especially, how does that connect with the multi-generational aspect? Because, if I go on a trip with my elementary school kids, there are things they can do, things I can do, but they may not overlap. So how does that work?
That's awesome. We do have a big heart for intergenerational groups, and whether that just means that families are traveling together, like maybe, seniors want to take their kids and their grandkids on a vacation where they're giving back and they're instilling those values in their grandkids. And so, ways to do that are to both the attractions that we go to need to excite all ages, but also, the service opportunity as well. And creating a pace that makes sense. Like I said, 2.5 hours seems to be kind of a sweet spot because it works well for all ages. If you start to get past that, the small children or even elementary school children start to get a little antsy, or they get distracted. And so we try to find volunteer experiences that make sense with the time frame. And we even sometimes will provide activities or even an extra guide that can kind of watch the kids and allow them to kind of have their own specialized activity. Maybe it's breaking down boxes if we're boxing up canned goods or something like that in a food pantry. The kids might actually get to go over and stomp on boxes while the adults are actually packing those bags efficiently,
Yeah.
And everybody gets to do something fun, but it's geared towards their age group. And, on some of our trips, we aspire to have childcare for a date night, for the parents. And so those are kind of some of the things. And then the typical logistics with transportation of having room to put on strollers. Some of our trips, we have the minimum age be kindergarten, but others, we love the idea of, not having to turn away families with small children. And with the intergenerational travel, like, you'd be surprised how many seniors, they live in either communities or they live, we're far away from their family members and their loved ones and their grandkids. And they just love to consider traveling with families. It's not for everybody, but it's just really beautiful. And a lot of parents tell us that we want to have our kids exposed to older generations that can share stories of the way that it used to be, and just kind of expose our kids to the important values and stories that they might not be hearing every day. Just to answer your question about different service opportunities, though, like, that's just so much fun to talk about, is in addition to like food pantries for elderly or a homeless shelter and serving in a homeless shelter in different capacities. We do environmental trips. We have a marine science trip to Panama City Beach where we plant sea oats for erosion control and building marine habitat. And that's actually with a marine scientist from University of Florida. Music and arts ministries. There's one there near Tarpon Springs that we love. That's close to our heart, Finding My Wings. and it's an art ministry for people coming out of sex trafficking. And so it gives opportunity for, student groups and stuff. They'll actually come in and get to do, do artwork as a part of the volunteer experience. And beautification or gardening is a good one, and park cleanups. Going and clearing out invasive species at Silver Springs State Park is very, very valuable to the rangers. And that's always fun for kids and adults, and good exercise and everything. And then, during the holidays are coming up. We've got Salvation Army partnerships with ringing the bells and organizing their angel tree toy distribution, laying flowers at veterans' grave sites. We have a partnership we're working on. We're trying to find a group that's interested in going out to Great Wolf Lodge and around the country and doing a SerVacation in partnership with them, but also getting to tour the local community where you're visiting. But the volunteer service experience is actually doing a Build-A-Bear, that they're famous for, but doing it for children in the hospital or for foster kids in the local community. So the kids that are actually building the little wolf for them, they're building it for another child, and so those are some fun ideas. And that doesn't have to be done in a particular facility. That could be done in a hotel meeting or conference room.
Yeah. Now, you used a phrase a couple minutes ago that I think might have made some people's heads spin. You talked about strollers on motor coaches. And I know a lot of our traditional adult tour companies are thinking, how do I even begin to wrap my head around what would be involved in providing everything you need to provide for young parents to have a successful trip? So, in addition to space on the motor coach, what are some of the other things, really practical things that you guys do to make sure that a truly multi-generational trip is fun and accessible and sort of hassle-free for people of all ages?
I mean, we definitely probably are of a smaller size and a little bit more flexible and nimble, that we're, kind of taking it on a case-by-case basis and trying to design the trip around those groups. So some of them may be that the groups are traveling on their own to a given city and meeting up at the hotel, and then we're doing a kind of a hub and spokes where the transportation is picking up for the day, and that's where the strollers might come in and out, literally. Yeah. But that's, like I mentioned, pace, and that's really, really key too, is to be able to understand the pace of your travelers, and tour directors. Folks like Mitch Bach, and that's a lot of what they teach is how to design your itinerary around your guests' needs. And so that's the kind of stuff that we're learning, as we go. But like I said, too, doing activities and games and icebreakers that bridge, the generations. Maybe it's trivia, that childcare for adults to be able to have a date night, whether it's a camp, coming in, maybe it's a sports camp coming into the hotel, to be able to do some sort of an activity for the kids, while the adults have the flexibility of doing dinner there on site or maybe even off site.
I'm interested to know, you're spending roughly 2.5 hours in the morning at a service project. How does the service element affect the way you price the tour? I'm interested to know, does it keep costs down because you're not having paid admissions, or are there costs in doing service that people may not be thinking about that actually add to the price of the tour?
I think they're right to think that they're low cost. There are supplies that are sometimes involved if you're doing, crafting or, just like any types of things. You might be doing a collection. If it's a corporate group, the group, it might be an added cost in that you're asking the guests to either provide ahead of time or bring with them, unwrapped Christmas toys for the kids while they're going out to Angel Tree to organize the distribution of it, if that makes sense. So yeah. There may be additional costs, but in general, it's very, very low, and it might be substituting. Usually our our service is where we get some of the big wow moments that you might expect from like a really expensive attraction. So in a way, it's substituting for that. It might be taking away some of the profit potential during that time period where you could be, at something that has more of a perceived value to it. But really that intangible value that they're getting from serving, I think that's like immeasurable. So it's kind of a balance, but I would really encourage everybody to consider it and not let that hinder you. If anything, it's a plus.
So as you look into the future, I know, of course, you would love to see great success and growth for SerVacations. What would you dream of seeing, not only for your company, but for the future of service and volunteering in tourism in general?
Well, I'd like to see more of them, of course, more domestic specifically. I think voluntourism and service tourism has been, very common, of course, in faith-based with mission trips and stuff, but specifically our model of just integrating some volunteering or service into your vacation. I think it's been very common with African safaris and South American tours, Central American tours, but doing it more domestically and in secondary cities where you can make a really big impact. And there's there's a whole lot of needs right here at home in our country and in our small towns and in places like we're working on a South Georgia agritourism tour, and just the amount of poverty in some of those areas, but just so much hope and excitement in the communities, and the small towns love to have the economic impact. They love to have the visitors. They love to just have that platform, and we want to give that to them. But we're just a little small voice in the industry right now. But also more local community-based charities. Not, like I said, national partnerships are great and big organizations, but sometimes just going local really has more impact, and more impact, I think, on the guests. More day tour operators offering a volunteerism version of their typical trip. We would love to partner with you on that, or to work with you on taking your existing day trip and creating a volunteerism version of your trip. And that's something that's really on our heart, is partnering with tour directors that just have a great love for service too, and starting to see it more open.
Yeah. Well, for anybody out there, and I'm sure there are people out there who are hearing you talk about these things and they're getting excited and they're saying, oh, I got to connect with Fred. I got to learn more about what they're doing and try to build a partnership. What's the best way for people to find you, follow you, reach you, and start collaborating?
Oh, thank you. Well, our website, of course, is SerVacations.com. If you smush the word service and the word vacations together with just one common V, it's SerVacations. So it's like SER vacations.com. And our Facebook is SerVacations, and Instagram is SerVacation. And my office phone is 813-498-2229, and email address is fred.carlson@servacations.com. So yeah, I'm very available.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, since you're a regular listener, you know that I'm not going to let you out of here without answering our 4 just for fun questions.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Yeah.
Nobody gets out of here without answering these questions. I'm like the troll guarding the bridge. So to start us off, when you book travel, are you booking a window seat or an aisle seat?
Definitely an aisle. I'm pretty tall. I need the extra space, and sometimes you'll see my legs slip out there and might get bumped by the cart.
Yeah, I've been there, man. I know what you're saying. So what is one thing in your carry-on that you wouldn't travel without?
Oh, my iPad. It's just too convenient that it fits so easily these days in the in my, I think you're talking about personal item, I'm guessing. I always have it in there, and it gets through security real easily, and just so many things to do and be able to read on planes and everywhere.
Yeah. You can get some of your best reading done on a plane because there's no other interruptions.
So true. Although I love to, as you can tell, I love to chat and get to know people. So sometimes I'll get wordy and not even pull my iPad out.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. So if you had a free airline pass and a week with nothing else to do, where would you be headed next?
Let's see, my family, we love to travel internationally, and we have friends and family all over the world. And we recently, a couple of years ago, visited our friends in Turkey, and we have an amazing tour operator over there that we know and work with. And I've been to all the big, Istanbul and Izmir and Cappadocia, hot air ballooning with the kids, and we're really would love to do a SerVacation over there one of these days. But there are some cities that we missed out on, kind of down there in the south on the Mediterranean, like Antalya, and we've been to Ephesus, but like Bodrum and those. I don't know. I think Turkey's a fascinating country and just so hospitable, and so maybe getting to spend even more time there would be cool.
That would be cool. Okay, so last question. What is one thing you have seen or done on the road that you wish you could go back and experience again with somebody you love?
Oh, I know what I would do is we have a Father's Day baseball trip that we do with, typically it's fathers and sons, but it's daughters and fathers or daughters and grandfathers or whatever. But we visit the Field of Dreams movie site.
Oh, cool.
And my son Kyle and I went, together the first year and just had a fantastic time. I've got 2 other sons and a daughter, and they haven't been there yet. So I look forward to getting to I'm not a big, baseball player or anything, but getting to pitch to them as well. And that was just a special memory. That one comes up, the Father's Day week in the summer.
Yeah, that would be sweet. I look forward to seeing those pictures. So, Fred, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you for all you do for the industry. We appreciate it, Brian.
Well, I sure hope you enjoyed that conversation with Fred Carlson as much as I did. Fred is a lovely guy. I always enjoy getting to spend some time with him. And I want to go back and hit a few of the things that he said just to make sure that you don't miss some of these important ideas. Now, when we were talking about the ideal mix of activities on a service-focused vacation, Fred said, picture serving in the morning for a 2 or 2.5 hour block. We're finding that that's kind of the sweet spot. Then we're off to do sightseeing in the afternoon. I love this idea of blending service and fun on a trip. No trip has to be all of one thing. And whether it's 2.5 hours or 1 hour or 4 hours, whatever works for your group and your audience, imagine what your trips could be like if you did include a little block of service or impact or a way to give back. It doesn't mean you're not having fun. It doesn't mean your people aren't going to appreciate it. It might mean they appreciate it more. You just have to be smart about how you deliver that mix and how you set expectations for what the trip is going to involve. Now, when we talked about how to do impact tourism in a meaningful way, Fred said you should really get to know the charities in your destination. Start vetting them and understanding their unique needs and challenges in the communities. Make sure you explain to them that you want to share their mission. And he went on to say, we're trying to create wow moments, but authentic wow moments where people are really touched by the people they're able to serve. And they go away knowing that they made a positive impact and that it's sustainable. It's important that you're doing something that can continue after you leave. We've seen problems before in the tourism industry where people sell experiences that have a high emotional value, but may not really be making a positive, sustainable difference in the places they're making. So I love this focus on really building relationships in the communities you're visiting, really figuring out how you can serve people on the ground, how you can meet their needs in a way that is meaningful, and how you can do it in a way that is sustainable so that your visit isn't a one-time thing that doesn't really move the needle, but you can start to build relationships that can help impact communities over and over again. Finally, when we talked about the value of serving on a tour, Fred said, our service is where we get some of the big wow moments that you might expect from a really expensive attraction. And he went on to say it might be taking away some of the profit potential when you could be at something that has more of a perceived value. But really, that intangible value they're getting from service is immeasurable. I love this perspective, and I would venture a guess that Fred is absolutely right. I've seen it myself on lots of trips where I have had opportunities to interact with locals and to make a meaningful impact on the local community. Those are the moments that end up the most memorable on a trip. That's what everybody goes home talking about. That's what they sign up to do again the next time they travel with you. Great stuff there from Fred Carlson. And, Fred sent along some ideas and opportunities and resources that we didn't even have a chance to get to in the interview, but I'm going to include all of those in the show notes for this episode. Be sure to check them out. Well, we talked earlier in the show about steps that Venice is taking to address problems of overtourism, and it got me thinking, how big a problem is overtourism really in our industry? Well, that's going to be the topic of today's Hot Minute. Yeah, that's right. The Hot Minute is the portion of the show where I take 60 seconds to give you my unfiltered views on an issue impacting tourism every day. So let's put 60 seconds on the clock and get into it. All right, overtourism is one of the most used buzzwords in the tourism industry these days. I hear it everywhere I go. But if you ask me, it's actually one of the most overhyped problems we face. Yes, there are places like Venice where high volumes of visitor traffic threaten to do real damage to sensitive environments. And yes, sometimes tourism can negatively impact local culture. But from what I can tell, there are only a couple dozen places around the world at serious risk of overtourism. And in the US, there's probably only a small handful. In fact, if you ask most travel and hospitality professionals, they're going to tell you their biggest problem isn't having too many visitors, but figuring out how to attract more. So maybe instead of spinning our wheels, fretting over a problem that only impacts a tiny percentage of destinations, our industry should spend its collective brain power trying to solve bigger problems that impact all of us. That is the Hot Minute. That's how I see things anyway. Of course, as always, you're welcome to disagree with me, and we can still be friends. And hey, whether you agree or disagree, we would love to hear from you. You can reach us at podcast@grouptravelleader.com. I read every email that comes into that address. I really genuinely enjoy hearing from you. And hey, you never know. The thoughts or questions, ideas, comments, rebuttals you send us, well, they might just show up as the topic of the next Hot Minute. And hey, while you're in the mood to give us some feedback, would you do me a big favor? Would you go to your favorite podcast playing app, find Gather and Go, hit that follow button so you get the next episode in your sleep. And while you're there, give us a rating, leave us a review. Those are super helpful. And I am thankful to every one of you who has done that so far. My thanks as well to Fred Carlson for joining us. That about wraps it up for Gather and Go for 2023. We're going to take some time off for the holidays. We will be back in mid-January. I can't wait for you to hear the brand new content we're working on. And hey, between now and then, why not go back and listen to some of the 40 episodes in our back catalog so you can continue learning and growing your tourism business as we celebrate the holidays. Until then, though, remember this. At the end of the day, we're all on this trip together, so let's make it a good one. See you next time on Gather and Go. Gather and Go is hosted and executive produced by me, Brian Jewell. Our publisher is Mac Lacey. Danya Simmons is our creative director. Ashley Ricks is our circulation manager and graphic designer. Our sales team is Kyle Anderson and Bryce Wilson. To advertise on the podcast, call Kyle or Bryce at 859-253-0455. Gather and Go is a production of the Group Travel Leader. For more information on our podcast, magazines, and events, visit us online at grouptravelleader.com.